the cloud. All right, so I'll do a quick introduction. Thanks
Cool.
to everyone who came out. This is intended as a very informal kind of lunch and learn. Um, we saw or I saw like a great thread on marketing tools and AI and collaborate, and thought, well, it'd be great to see some of these. You hear about them, but seeing them in action is there. I don't think any of the people presenting today have anything formal. It's more they're going to kind of show and tell. Um, and if you have questions, feel free to put them in the chat or jump in. I personally, so I'm on the tech council, and part of our mission is sort of creating community. And so I'm curious if this is a good format for that creating community aspect. So I think the how we approach this is very much up to us and what we need. So with that said, I sort of voluntold, I guess. I don't know. They volunteered 4 folks. So Alan from Wisconsin EMS Association is going to present on Coda AI, which is sort of and how it's a project management tool, but has AI built into it. Um, we have Erica, who's from Ross.io. She's going to talk about MyGPTs. We've got Karen Taylor from Vault Consulting, and she's going to talk about Claude for writing content, the output sounds for more natural human-like. And then Evan, who just joined from ASHA, using it for qualitative data analysis with, again, ChatGPT. So just a couple different use cases. And there it is. All right. Alan, if you want to share
Sure.
again.
Sure thing. All right. All right. Hopefully everybody can see. Let me just hide these out of the way. So what I use is called Coda. .io, just as a reference, of course, because I'm logged in this. Hold on. So Coda, this is what it is. If anybody's interested, but this is what I use. There's also a free version. What it does is basically acts as a project management tool, um, I don't want to say SOP tool, but you could have like different pages and different tasks and things like that. So it has built-in AI, something they've added recently, and then they're building out a AI Coda brain, as they call it, which will eventually, like a lot of companies, will connect to your data so you can query it and make changes to it as needed. Right now, it just has AI kind of built in, Coda AI. So as an example, we had something recently come up that we were trying to get people to rally around. This is an advocacy type issue. And so I gave it, here's our goal. Our goal is launching a call to action to advocate for PTSD for EMS. So from this, I can ask AI to, write a marketing plan for this goal and call to action. I'm gonna keep it really simple here. Um, without going into crazy detail. So it kind of spits it out just like a ChatGPT would. We can add this into here so we can kind of have what we want to do, dissemination of letters, rally our members, involve the media, make a public statement. Um, and kind of that's it. I want to say we can go into more detail if we want to, like just like any ChatGPT, we can say like start I don't know, writing the detailed letter. I'm doing this as a kind of a whim here, but it pulls in the appropriate information. Governor Evers in Wisconsin. We can insert this at the bottom if we wanted to. Kind of like separate things out if we want to, and just kind of how it can take content on the existing page and basically change it and starting to build out all these different pieces right away for you, especially if you have no idea where to start. I will say I use a lot of ChatGPT with this in combination, but that's pretty much, I mean, I don't want to say Coda, but like, I mean, this is kind of this is what I use a lot of times for building out to-do lists and trying to organize around a topic or around a goal, around a particular call to action like this, um, things like that. I know this is not showing a whole lot, but that's what I got.
No, I mean, I think
Questions.
so. How much time? I assume you obviously edit after you submit or after you kind
Yeah.
of generate it. Do
Mhm.
you, are there any issues you see on a regular basis? You're like, oh, now I know to look for that when it generates content.
Um, I would not exactly. The only thing I would say with Coda AI, just like with any, is when it doesn't have quite enough information. I will say, and wholeheartedly will say, if you write better prompts, and I mean just not like simple little, like a way better than I did. If you write way better prompts, you give it more content, like we'll upload like public PDFs and things like that, because I can, I mean, if I wanted to, I can do um, a file to this and add in a PDF. It can use that as well. So if I add in like we'll download our legislative administrative code, which is public data, but it's 168 pages and I don't want to read through it. So I can upload that into here, keep it in here, and then when I prompt the AI, I say, hey, I need you to search through this, find me this exact piece, and like example PTSD coverage, where does this actually affect in the legislative code? Where do we need to change? Because a lot of advocacy revolves around, well, what am I changing exactly? The legislator wants to know, um, basically. So I use it for a whole slew of different things, truly. But that's kind of what I use the AI piece of it for, because I know we're talking more about AI today. But thoughts, questions? That's all I really had.
Hey, Alan, Moira here, and
Mhm.
this is actually really fascinating. So when it reads through the PDF, does it
Mhm.
like could you get it to read through, say, big legislation
Oh
at
God,
that
yes.
point?
Yeah, I do that all the time with because I personally have read through a lot of our legislation, but it is a pain in the butt. So I'd rather give it to ChatGPT. And actually I think Erica's talking about my GPTs. I've done custom GPTs, but there is limitations to custom GPTs. Um, the whole my she'll go over that. I won't steal thunder. So, but I do build them around our legislative code, administrative code. Try to add in like we've got scope of practice because we're medical, but I'm sure every other medical and similar has a scope that they're around for their industry. So I try to stick all that into there, and it actually helped me identify specific verbiage. ChatGPT did, and or Coda AI, doesn't really matter. Both can do it. Um, Specific verbiage on one of our grant programs that is like I call it a grant program, but it's constant. It's every single year in our state, but it had some funny little language in it that I did not identify that referenced another area, but AI was able to pick that out. So yes, you can give it quite a bit. I actually imagine if you can put more on this page, on the Coda page here, you could probably have it even see past the limits of my GPTs too.
And another question, sorry,
Mhm.
like how does this differ from, say, Chat GPT? What does this particular tool do that Chat GPT doesn't? It kind of, is it that it stores it?
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, this is, I mean, I will say like this is going to look a little crazy, but this is our task list for like, and then you can do timelines. So this acts as both like web pages, databases, um, everything. I mean, and I say everything. I've even built entire dashboards out of this. I'll show you one that our board uses. Like, so I built a small little board of directors. Oops. Yeah, let's go to dashboard. Okay. So our board of directors will see this. These are all just little buttons. All this is basically kind of like a web page, but it's locked down to them. So if they want to go to a particular, you know, committee, whatever it is, advocates or executive, you can view the meeting information. So you can put in data within to here. And then if I wanted to use the AI tool to be like, yeah, summarize this meeting for me or whatever, we can do that. Um, yeah, I mean, I try to put in as much information into this like little dashboard, but that's what I've used Coda for specifically. Um, it even can build, well, I'll show one last thing because a lot of people have always searched for like some way to do reviews and things like that. of, I don't know if it's courses or content or whatever it is. So we do core content review, and this is built in Coda as well, that there's little buttons for our education committee. They can view all the attachments, this guy's, PowerPoint, his PDF, what his course is all about, and they can click approve, and it takes it off this little list. And all our members do is go to this list, approve or deny. And it's basically a record then for us on all activity of approvals and denials and all that fun stuff. So it kind of acts as a submission platform as well, because we can do forms and all sorts of fun stuff. But that's Coda. I know it's not AI part of it, but anything else? I think someone said how to use the calendar. All this calendar does is actually like I can pull and drag these projects and it'll just change the date, the due date on it. But these are just like tasks, so I can like click add a task, categorize it with whatever I want to, and I don't know, I'm just gonna put in some bogus information in here. Sure. If we want to do like, what's in progress or what's under marketing, clearly I have nothing. Administrative. So we can filter it down based on our tasks for those things. I've even pushed out, like we do a lot of grants, so we can add tasks that go to that task list, but also are on this task list that are part of this grant. So I can see like all of our tasks for everything we're doing, or if I just want to look at just this grant itself. These are those tasks at hand.
That's
I know
great.
I know it's a little much beyond the AI piece of it, but this is just one of the programs that I know not many people have ever heard of. But I really like using it. There's just so much to it. Yeah,
All right.
that's all I got.
Alan, that's great. Let's I mean, you mentioned MyGPTs, and so maybe Erica, you want to jump
Yep.
in here with your next look?
Sure. I hadn't heard of Coda either. That it's really cool how it has so many different capabilities. That was awesome. Thanks, Alan. So I'm going to go through my GPTs and the way that those are different than just the enhanced memory capabilities that have been recently built into the ChatGPT interface is that you can create a MyGPT to be very specialized and very specific with what its boundaries are and what it is trained on. So like your internal documentation, like if you wanted to use a MyGPT for training new employees and onboarding, for example, you could train it on your onboarding documents. If you wanted to train a MyGPT to help you create marketing content, it could be specifically trained on your brand guidelines and you could tell it what not to do. I thought that it might be interesting to create a MyGPT specifically relevant to the association space. So I tried to create some prompting ahead of time. And I thought I'd just go through the process of what it looks like to create one.
These are meant to reprogram your subconscious mind with ease.
Is that me? No, can you guys hear me? I don't think that's me.
Yeah.
All right, so let's go ahead and create a GPT. And so can everyone see my screen? I think you can. You can see on the left-hand side, this is sort of like the training area where you train it on its parameters, documentation that you want it to learn on, and then this right-hand side acts like a ChatGPT interface that you might be familiar with, where this is the context window, and then this is where it's going to answer you. So, all right, what would you like to make? Here we go. Let's go ahead and dive in. So we're going to create a member engagement GPT. Hold on. This GPT. This might not all be apples to apples, but let's try it. Okay, so this GPT will be designed to help an association leader get insights and recommendations on how to engage the specific member segments better. Let me actually put in a little bit more context. Thank you for being patient with me as I fumble through this, but I think I have most of the questions answered. It's just reformatting some of the copy. All right, so let's create a member engagement GPT. And then it's going to start to ask us additional questions about how we want to train it. Okay, let's choose a name. I suggest member engagement advisor. Yep, let's say sure. Thanks, robot friends. All right, now it's okay. it's gonna give us a picture, and it's gonna probably use our friend Dolly to do that. Oh, there was an issue generating the profile picture. That's fine. We're not worried about the picture. Remember, but now you see on the right-hand side how this is starting to mimic the ChatGPT experience that is more traditional. Okay, we don't really care about the profile picture. No, that's okay. Let's proceed. Now let's refine the behavior. To start with, specific aspects or considerations should be emphasized or avoided when the GPT gives advice or recommendations. Okay, so I did pre-create some stuff about parameters. Let's see. Let's talk about what it's going to do. Should it be formal, casual, or perhaps something else? Let's see. Let's keep it formal. And then I also grabbed an association FAQ from the ASA website. So once it starts to ask us about parameters and how we want to train, we're going to start to feed it some information. Okay, so now it's saying it's ready, but I feel like we didn't give it a ton. So, and let's see, here is some documentation we would like you to train on. Can't train on external documents, but I should be able to train on website information. You want specific information from that page to be reflected. You can summarize the key points. Okay, let's go ahead, and since this is publicly available information, we're going to go ahead and train it on some publicly available information. Great. Would you like me to incorporate this information or focus up? No, please do not take it directly. Use it for context. So then it's going to continue to learn. And then you can imagine, so if you're training folks, again, internally, you're onboarding them, you're training your marketing team on how to create your own copy, you can feed it pages from your website. It says now it has a solid understanding. If you'd like to make any further adjustments or test it out. Okay, so now let's go ahead and prompt it. So I have a strategic initiative to engage younger members in our association. What do you recommend? Let's see what it gives us and see if it's relevant. So it's giving us some ideas about how we want Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn, great. Networking opportunities, flexible membership options, enhance engagement through personalized communication, promote leadership and volunteer opportunities. So you can imagine you could dig in to each of these even further, asking it for project plans, asking it for actual step-by-step of what to do for each of these 8 initiatives. But you guys get the idea. I mean, the memory capabilities that are now built into ChatGPT are pretty impressive, but this again allows you to create some parameters, train it on certain documents, data sets, etc. So I think that's pretty much what I have. Oh, this is actually one other thing that I wanted to share with you folks. This is not MyGPT, but this is a place where you can kind of look to see what LLMs or large language models are leading. So this is called the Chatbot Arena. This was created in a lab at Berkeley, and students and faculty wanted to essentially head-to-head test out the models. So Gemini, ChatGPT, Mistral, all of them, Llama, all of them that are available. And what they do is they have real people kind of testing these against each other. So if you're like, do I use Claude? Do I use ChatGPT? What do I use? You can actually check out the leaderboard of who's winning the vote. So if you wanted to say, for example, so, and then you get to be the voter. So let's say, tell me about associations in 2 to 3 sentences. See what we get. And it's blind right now, so we don't know who's answering us. I'm not going to actually, let's see. Oh. And okay, so this is not the kind of association that we wanted it to tell us about, but let's say we say B is better, or let's say we say tie or both are bad. That's actually going to be a vote that registers. Let's go ahead and say tie because they are approximately the same, it looks like. And then what we can do is we can check out the leaderboard and see how these models are doing pitted against each other as folks like us vote. So right now it says ChatGPT 4.0 is in the lead, followed by Gemini 1.5. So you can see all of these various models that are in the, I think it's like 70 to 90 or so. Oh, I take it back, 128. So there you go. So if you're ever like, what do I use? What's the best right now? You can come to chat.lmsys.org and check out the leaderboard. All right, now I'm done.
That was great. Any questions from anyone before we keep on keeping on? It's super helpful. I guess, Karen, are you ready to jump in, or would you rather Evan jump in here?
No, I can jump in.
All right, great. Take it away.
Okay. Can y'all see my screen?
Not yet.
Yet? Hang on a second. Like I said, I talked to IT right before this, so I apologize if I have problems.
There it goes. It says, good afternoon, Karen.
All right. So I use all the different ones that we've talked about so far. I've used them. What I like about Claude over ChatGPT and Gemini, at least, I feel like it has more of a natural sounding, like if I write a LinkedIn post or a blog, it's a little bit more natural sounding than others, more human-like, I should say. All of them adapt to your brand tone and your voice now. When Claude first came out, one thing I did notice that it kind of stood out more to me was that it adapted to my brand voice a little bit stronger, if that makes sense. I did not create any prompts for specifically for associations, but just looking at some of my history. I did one this morning. I was like, what's the value proposition between Claude and all those? Funny story, they can't actually pit themselves against each other. When they do, they kind of, it's like cannot compute. I did, so this one, for example, I uploaded, so you can always upload instead of, for example, if you have a draft of something, you don't need to paste it in. You can just upload any document. It'll read Word documents, PDFs. It'll even, not just Claude, but others will read Excel files. So if you have a lot of data, just be, aware of the confidentiality aspect of it, of course. But I just put in here a blog post that we wrote. I could have linked to the website, but I uploaded the actual blog post with the metadata and keywords and everything, so it understood the blog completely. And then I had it write, I just kept it simple, write an engaging post for LinkedIn. It wrote it for me, and it explains like why it's engaging. And then I said, make it more skimmable, because let's be real, people don't read anymore. And so it made another version. I often will have it create a few different versions to look at, different, varying versions of it, and taking pieces from one versus another. And then I do the same exercise with, not with every single post, because that would be a lot, but I'll do the same exercise with ChatGPT and Gemini and just feel like it sounds more human within Claude. There's no huge bells and whistles. I do use the free version, so I think there are some more bells and whistles with the paid plan, but free has worked well for me. Another one I know I didn't say that I would do another one, but I wanted to show quickly Perplexity. That's one that I use for research. So I'm working on a blog post. And so I said, what are the biggest pain points right now for nonprofits that research can solve? And so I'm tossing ideas back to it, and it's giving me some responses, some answers on kind of how to just ideation. One thing that I learned, I took a master class in AI through the Digital Marketing Institute about a month ago now. And one thing that was like a light bulb for me is that with AI, think of it almost as like a marketing intern. Like, I'm in marketing, so I think of it as just basically like an intern. Instead of having that person, it maybe takes them hours to do a task like doing some research on some pain points or doing some competitor analysis, we'll use Perplexity to do a lot of that research instead. Or, we'll use Claude to help me write. I don't use it specifically to write all the content within a blog post, but I'll have it write snippets or help me write pieces of it. Like I'll maybe start with an outline. It helps me with ideation for sure. Questions?
All right. I always like to give people a nice 10 seconds after we ask for questions.
I highly recommend Perplexity, though, as far as the market research piece.
Yeah. And as Wendy points out, these are both great. Thanks for sharing. So,
yeah.
So sometimes the easy or the easy solutions can be the best. All right, and then Evan, you're our last on the docket for today.
Awesome. A whole half hour to talk about random AI stuff. I can go for that.
we definitely don't need to stretch it out. You don't.
No, it's all good. So I'm going to walk through a process that I actually initially started running in Claude because I totally agree with Karen that Claude has a much better kind of natural language feel in what it produces, whereas I find ChatGPT to be a bit lofty and constantly trying to prove it's smarter than me. I'm going to do this in ChatGPT simply because I've been having issues with the amount of data that I can get into Claude recently. I haven't tried in the past month or so, so their context window has probably gotten significantly larger, but I'll have to test that out at some point. Give me a second. Let me share my screen here. And what we're going to talk about is how to use generative AI to much more quickly get through qualitative analysis. So, okay, you guys should be able to see my screen at this point. We've started using this process for a couple of different purposes. So we collect a lot of qualitative survey data, for instance, but we're also collecting a lot of qualitative data when we're taking transcripts of meetings, transcripts of breakout rooms. And this process can really be used for anything that is based on large quantities of text data. The first time we actually used this, we'd run a big series that was looking at the future of teaching and learning in the communication sciences and disorders discipline. And across the course of, I don't know, 10 big webinars where each one had 5 to 6 different breakout rooms talking about very specific topics, we wound up with 50 or 60 transcript of these breakout room conversations. And we wanted to capture how people were approaching the different problems within the CSD fields and the solutions they might have there. And the challenge we had is that was a lot to review and a lot for anyone to kind of summarize. And ChatGPT, actually I was using Claude for it at the time, did a fantastic job of that. So we started thinking about how we could use the same process for survey data. And the survey data that you can see right now is a subset of responses that we received to a survey that we fielded in 2020, asking our members how they were impacted by the pandemic. At the time, when we fielded this survey, we got something like 68,000 open text responses back, which was just a large quantity of data to try and get through. At that time, we put it in Power BI, we used word clouds, we used segmentation, so that we weren't dumping 68,000 text responses on any one person's desk to read and synthesize. we were breaking that up into subject matter experts, giving people the responses from populations that they represented, and we churned through all of that data. But it's also become a kind of interesting test bed when we're going through and looking at whether or not generative AI could kind of do this better than we did it with the tools that we had in 2020. So this data set I pared down a little bit. I left two of the bigger questions in here. The first one is, how is the pandemic impacting students, patients, clients, or affecting your students or students in CSD programs? The other one is basically, what other impact is the pandemic having on you, your goals, and the discipline? I've left 3 segmentation variables in here as well. So first, we wanted to see member type. So, kind of who was the respondent to ASHA from a member standpoint. Secondly, we asked if they're a student. Third, we asked if they worked in school. So about half of our members work in a school setting. So they're providing speech language pathology services in schools. The other half is split between primarily healthcare settings and then research and higher ed institutions. So I basically want to know what feedback we were getting from our members through this survey. The one thing I'll touch on before I drop this into ChatGPT and kind of walk through this process, you need to be very careful what information you're providing to these generative bots. Now, when they first rolled out, it was kind of the Wild West when it came to data privacy. Now with the paid plans, there are at least some expectations of data privacy for an end user. You need to decide what level of data privacy you and your organization are comfortable with before you start chunking this data into ChatGPT, Claude, Perplexity, anything. One of the steps that we have put in place when we're doing large qualitative data sets like this is we run them through a Python script that uses natural language processing to basically scrub PII out of these data sets. So we remove people's names, phone numbers, email addresses, anything that would be personally identifiable. We replace it with a token placeholder that says what we pulled out. If it pulls someone's name out, it uses a little bracketed name thing. You do emails, phone numbers, places, whatever extent you want to do. We do that for most of the big files that we push through generative AI for summarization. It's just an extra level of confidentiality. We want to make sure we're not pushing anyone's PII through these systems that it's not given us permission to do that. So once we have this file set up, and this file is about 6,000 rows, I think, just to make sure, okay, this one's about 3,000 rows, but twice that because we've got responses in both of these columns. To make sure that this would process and everything as we worked through, I've pared down our 68,000 responses to this smaller subset. You can run the entire file at this point, which is a little insane, but very cool. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to drop this spreadsheet into ChatGPT. I'm comfortable with the data privacy that I have here. I'm going to provide it the spreadsheet, and then I'm going to give it an initial prompt to go in and look at the data set. And the first thing I wanted to do is tell me what columns it has and to define them. Now, you can do this in a couple of different ways. You could give ChatGPT a definition for each of the columns. That is probably the better way to do it. I personally think that this is just kind of cool because it will look at what's in those columns and make its best guess as to what data you are providing it. So it's given us our columns here. Now I'm going to give it its task. So what I have found generative AI to be particularly good at is identifying these high-level kind of key themes in feedback data. And when I'm talking about key themes, I am relying on the algorithm to find the most heavily repeated patterns of words and concepts in the data that I am providing it. I am not asking it to do word counts or to produce a quantitative data set from my qualitative data. I can do that. I can dump this into Power BI. I can create word clouds. I can create key phrase tagging and everything against this. I want generative AI to do the thing that generative AI is incredibly good at, which is synthesize large quantities of text data and spit something out. And from our testing, we found this to be pretty accurate. So with ChatGPT, one of the challenges is that a lot of the time it wants to take the approach of being a qualitative researcher. It's trained on all sorts of information that says, here's how you do qualitative analysis. I don't want it to do qualitative analysis. I want it to summarize. So you have to be a little careful how you produce these initial prompts, or it will try and produce and run Python scripts in the background that will start counting words and give you your most frequently used words and frequently related words. And you have to kind of prompt it into giving you this long form feedback of your high themes or your most frequent themes, which it's done pretty well here. Now it followed my prompt, it's giving me both a definition for the theme and it's starting to give me strings from the underlying data set that support each of these themes. And I expect that as I scroll through this, everyone's reading this very, very quickly. So I'm not going to go through each of these themes, although these are mirroring our conclusions pretty well. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to ask it for each of these themes to identify something very specific. I want to know what people are asking ASHA to do. So within each of these high-level buckets, I'm going to work with these high-level buckets throughout the rest of the analysis that I'll do with it. I can pull out the action items. So of what people are reporting, can we create a list of things that maybe the organization can act on quickly that would address some of these? Now we see these are starting to produce, increased support for online learning, training and resources for teletherapy. This was one of the major things that we put in during the pandemic. Mental health and well-being, more guidelines for kind of working during the pandemic. And very quickly, this is something that would have taken a week, if not more, for individuals to read through and start coming up with this list. We can have a list of actionable things that the organization could go out and do for our members. Now, the one last thing that I will demonstrate for this is that it's also very good at doing comparisons. So if you remember, we had those segmentation variables at when we looked at the data set. I would like it to compare what the needs of members in school settings are versus members that were not in school settings. And it should still do this within the context of these high-level themes. Or I might break it out. Or it might write a Python script and give us word frequencies. We'll see. Claude's a lot better at just giving you the full report out versus trying to turn everything into quantitative data. But while it's thinking about this, the one other important thing to keep in mind if you do want to take this approach is quality control and quality checking. If we were doing this from a quantitative standpoint, we would have a bunch of different checks to make sure that our quantitative data was accurate. What I'm finding with this approach is you can make those checks a little bit more informal. So when we did our first project where we took all of the data from those breakout groups and summarized it with Claude, our quality check was that we had staff in every single one of those breakout rooms. So we provided our summarization back to staff and just had them sanity check it. Does this represent what was being talked about in your breakout rooms? And for the most part, it matched up. Some of the breakout rooms were kind of outliers. They were having different conversations. But the majority of the feedback that we got was that it was an accurate representation of what was being discussed. For something like this survey data, the goal would still be to have the subject matter experts read through the responses. Digesting those responses is incredibly important, but trying to create summaries out of thousands of responses is an incredibly complex task. So if we can have the generative AI do that piece of the work for us, and then we can have the people that have been exposed to those responses review the summaries and decide if they're accurate, we're getting pretty good feedback from this. Okay. I think this is not breaking it down by groups, which is kind of annoying. And we could rerun that, tweak the prompt, and kind of get better feedback from this. I've had it create really great feedback or summaries where it's comparing one group to another. Anyway, that's basically what I have. Any questions, thoughts, concerns?
Evan, is this the primary research or So like the survey data is the main thing you've done with this sort of analysis, or have you done any other types of data?
I have not gotten to the point where I am comfortable running quantitative data through generative AI. That may partially be because I haven't experimented with it that much, but generative AI engines don't really do math. They can, however, create scripts to have other programs do quantitative analysis for you. So if you want to work with ChatGPT with a quantitative data set, you can have it create Python scripts, it can run those Python scripts, and it can give you quantitative output. You should not try and work with quantitative data sets with like straight generative conversations, because its concept of math and how numbers work and how numbers relate is all kind of theoretical. It's like if you had someone read a bunch of complex math textbooks and then apply everything with zero practice or zero kind of hands-on learning. It's an area that I'm planning to look into a bit more, but it's not something that we've really hit a giant need for versus creating Power BI dashboards and providing, descriptive statistics or even some more kind of predictive approaches to the data that we have. So we're going to keep experimenting with it, but right now, from a purely generative AI standpoint, I've had a lot more success with qualitative data sets.
Great. Any other questions? Or I guess, we've got we scheduled for an hour. Happy to end a little early. If anyone wants to jump in with an impromptu show and tell, you're more than welcome to do that. Otherwise, I've recorded, and I'm assuming all the presenters are okay if I share out the recording afterwards. What works for you? All right, great. Well, thank you. And I'm curious if this was a success. People felt like this was a good format. You're welcome to message me directly, or if there's any other feedback. Tech Council, AC's Tech Council. I think I mentioned at the beginning, again, looking for new opportunities to collaborate and create community. And I'm curious if this format works for folks. So I may try it again on another topic in the future and just see how it goes. So, all right. If there's nothing else, thanks everyone. I'll stick around for a couple more minutes just in case anyone wants to chat. But otherwise, hope everyone has a wonderful day.
Thank you all. And just so you all know, on the forum, there are other AI tools too that we didn't touch on today, if anyone else is curious, that I've already implemented and I've started using in my own day-to-day. So thank you so much, Justin, for setting this all up. And thank you for everyone presenting. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks, Justin, for organizing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you, Justin.
Thanks, everyone.